They're concerned about liability, so I'm going to switch the liability and flip it around on them and show them exactly what I'm talking about. When they say liability, I'm going to make it motivative instead of demotivative. My friend Kyle persuaded the police to eventually start going down regularly into these storm drains and evicting the sewer drug gangs. I've mentioned this in the past. They do that on like a weekly basis. The first time they did it, they found 2 people with murder warrants. One of them had 5 murder warrants, which means he had killed 5 people. It's important that these lifestyle isn't perpetuated. They also hauled out 5 truckloads of stuff that the sewer drug gang had accumulated, either through stealing or people just leave stuff on the street and other people pick it up. And I love that about our city of Garden Grove. It's great. It saves me a lot of money. I find good stuff frequently. Much of my apartment is furnished with things that I found on the street. I clean them up and then I bring them home. Why spend money on stuff when I don't have to? It gives my home a fascinating, eclectic feel, and it saves me money, and it saves stuff from going into the dump. It's a form of recycling, and I love it. So the sewer drug gang had gathered 5 truckloads of stuff, but a lot of that stuff was stolen. And I'm going to get back to that because that's an important point. When the police go down to do their patrol of the storm drain, they are basically underground, which is kind of cool, except that the police radios that they use to communicate with each other are line of sight, which means they can go through something as simple as like a house. They can't go through steel reinforced concrete, which is what the drain is lined with, essentially a Faraday cage. They can't go through multiple feet of dirt. This is the stuff that's like science uses to keep radioactive things isolated, like nuclear power plants, right? Or if they're going to harden something against radioactivity, they'll use a Faraday cage and they'll use just water or dirt to insulate themselves, like bunkers hundreds of feet underground. When the police go down into these drains, they lose their ability to communicate on their radios. Now, to be a police officer is to put your life on the line for the sake of the community. That is the job. That is what they're signing up for. If they're not okay with that, they shouldn't do the job. But I think it's the city council and the people's responsibility to mitigate the risk to which we assign these people who choose a vocation of putting their lives at risk. We need to make sure that that risk is necessary and not unwarranted. The police officers and the military are putting their lives in the trust of the civilization for which they serve. And that is a noble sacrifice, and we need to honor it by not using that trust without cause. I think that not putting in the sewer grates, asking the police officers to again and again put their lives at risk with people who have a known history of murdering other people, we don't need to put the officers' lives at risk. And by telling the city council members this at city council, I am making it a matter of public record because they broadcast that city council meeting on local television. I don't think police officers do all of that they do are not good. There is corruption, a lot of it. But I also think that our civilization facilitates disconnection, scarcity, and separation, focusing on the individual. In that civilization, there will be crime because you're facilitating scarcity, and scarcity necessarily will produce in a person an animalistic instinct to hoard things to themselves through ethical or unethical means. In that civilization, we need some level of the threat of force, the threat of violence. We need the police officers. They do too much. They are overtasked. They are overburdened. We need to fix that. But we also need police officers or some form of governance, not to be abused, not to be used as a mechanism for limiting individual civil liberties or things like COINTELPRO, like the FBI did in Oakland against the Black Panthers. That crap is wrong. But because they did one thing wrong doesn't mean all that they do is wrong. A person, a group is not defined by the worst thing that they do. That is not the only thing that defines them. Second liability, and this is segueing into the other thing that I wanted to talk about. There is a company in Garden Grove called GKN. It is a British aerospace company, and they make the cockpit canopy plastic for all fighter jets made in the United States. They had a chemical catalyst problem a few weeks ago where 3 cities had to be at least partially evacuated. I was 2 blocks or 3 blocks away from this evacuation zone, so I was immune from it. During the GKN chemical catalyst problem, those sections of the cities that were empty, the drug gangs were like, hey, free stuff! And they started breaking into houses and then disappearing into the sewers. This would have been stopped had all of the sewers had those grates I described. So, by not doing it, when crime happens, including Walmart, which I detest, or individual residences, when crime happens and the city can do something about it and chooses not to, a simple, relatively inexpensive solution that does not put anyone's life at risk, when they choose not to do that, the city may be legally liable for not building this infrastructure to prevent the crime. Because what happened was that the sewer drug gang would go up, they would break into the house, the alarm would go off, the police would show up, and by the time the police showed up, the sewer drug gang was already gone back into the sewers, where they were not pursued, because the city police were understandably retasked with managing the toxic chemical catalyst problem. Those are the arguments I'm going to bring to the city next time, which is to say next Tuesday, which is to say probably by the time you watch this, I will have already been to the city council meeting, unless it gets canceled, which it was for the entire month of July. The argument was that they had to have extra meetings for that toxic chemical spill. However, when I went to the city council meeting, the last Tuesday meeting of July that it was supposed to happen, they had canceled it again without notification. This is the day that I was meeting my friend Kyle. This was the day that I was stepping into open-handed living, into coincidental, corporeal, and energetic living. And as was demonstrated with my meeting with Kyle that first time in his hospital room, the universe used my motivation, Creator used my motivation to go and rebuke the city council and get them to build the sewer grates to get me to do something else. There is an organization that is boycotting GKN. GKN wants to expand their operations, and this counter nonprofit organization, which I will show and link to in the comments, had sent protesters to boycott the expansion of GKN, and in fact kicked GKN entirely out of the city of Garden Grove. The argument that these particular protesters are using for this particular instance is that the canopies that GKN manufactures are used on the F-35 stealth fighter, 5th generation US fighter, which, like, as long as we live in a delusion of scarcity, there's going to be people fighting over resources, and those resources are going to be defended with the threat of violence. And this threat of violence manifests itself in weapons of war. It's more specifically, in this case, the F-35. That's an understandable usage. The problem is the United States allowed Israel to purchase F-35s, which are then being used to perpetrate war crimes, and the United Nations has ruled on this. They're not ambiguous. They are, in fact, war crimes, bombing civilians in Palestine. I am not an anti-Semite. I love Jews. I love all people. I am not even anti-Zionist. I think that every people deserve a safe homeland. The way that Israel was established was immoral, to say the least. The way that they are behaving today and for the past several years against Palestine is morally bankrupt. They are doing bad things. They are committing war crimes, they are committing war atrocities, they are starving people to death, they are murdering people in the streets, civilians who are not participating in the war. That's something called total war, and it was made illegal after World War I. The United States did and does continue to commit war crimes without consequence, because pretty much every country is afraid that the United States, if they come against them, the U.S. will just nuke them in response or disrupt their government on some level. And the United States has enough history doing this that threat of violence is real. But we can't just sit around and allow these war crimes to be perpetrated without saying something, without waking up to the reality that this is what's going on. My question to the protesters was,